So Danny and I were college students at the University of Memphis together in the early 2000s. Danny's pretty much his whole family went to the University of Memphis. In fact, his parents met as students at the University of Memphis. And so he had a long line of folks that came to school here. He grew up a Memphis fan. For me, came to know the University of Memphis kind of later in high school. And so we both came here as students and were very active on campus, and we can tell you more about that if you want. But we were both presidents of our respective fraternity and sorority. So I was Sigma Kappa president, Danny was Pike president, and back then, fraternity and sorority presidents took a leadership class together that also involved a retreat and some kind of team building activities. And so we were both in that class, which the retreat portion of which, interestingly enough, actually was in the building that my office is in now. Back when the building was the Fogelman Executive Center, that's where the retreat meetings were held. So our middle school music classroom that our son now takes music class in is actually the room that we met in. And we were put in a small group together in that class to work on a project, and Danny and I were placed in the same group, and that's how we met. And we quickly realized that we had a lot in common, and one of those things we had in common was our love for the city of New Orleans. And so our first official date was actually on a trip to New Orleans. And we often joke that like we should never tell our children that, because like you really shouldn't have your first date be like a 6-hour car ride away.
They don't really understand the gravity of something like that quite yet, but there will be a time in their life where they sort of realize like, oh, that was a big step to,
Right.
Start your relationship with a weekend in New Orleans.
Yeah, it was kind of, I feel like we both were kind of like waiting for the other one to call our bluff, and then nobody called the bluff, and then we just got in the car. And our daughter's named Nola now. And so we have 2 children. They're both students in university schools at the University of Memphis. And Danny coaches as a volunteer, coaches 2 of our basketball teams here at the middle school. So we're both very involved on campus still, even now as adults. So that is how we met. Danny can tell the story of how we add anything that I missed, Danny, and you can also tell the story.
No, I think if timelines are important. I think that we met early 2004, and then we graduated summer of 2004. Worked for a year in Memphis while Sally was finishing her degree. And then in 2005, we moved to Miami, where we both went to school. And we were there 3 years until we decided that we loved Miami, but we could not raise a family down there and start our professional careers there. And so we then moved to Knoxville from 2008 until 2017. And Knoxville is a place where we became married. We had our kids, Deacon and Nola. But we, funnily enough, the University of Memphis is sort of like, it reaches into our lives at 3 different points. And so instead of having, our wedding in Knoxville, where we were living, where we had our jobs, we traveled back to Memphis in October of 2008. And I remember this because it was the weekend, not only that I would propose to Sally, and I wasn't sure if she would say yes or no at that point. But it was also the weekend, I went to law school, so it was also the weekend that I found out if I passed the bar in Tennessee or not. And so we're in Memphis. I still remember the day. It's October 10th, 2000, because there is a Memphis-Louisville football game later that night.
I love that's how he remembers it, is because of the football game.
Well, before this, I couldn't remember if we won or not. I looked it up online. We lost by a touchdown. But earlier that day, I had a ring in my pocket. I took Sally to the campus, and by the fountain right there outside of the field house and down from the next to the UC, I guess now, I proposed to her. And that's sort of another tie that binds our lives to the University of Memphis, because we hadn't even moved back to Memphis at this point. We were still living in Knoxville, but Memphis was so ingrained in our lives that we decided to get married there in 2009. And I decided that's a great place to ask Sally to marry me in 2008. That sort of, even though we were across the state, we felt the tug back to Memphis even before we moved our lives back there in 2017. And so since Sally, got the job in 2017, I'll let you tell if you want to like fill in the rest of the
Sure.
times.
Yeah. So it's wild because we got engaged in '08, married in '09, and our wedding was a big old Memphis affair. The colors were blue and gray. Everyone was wearing, girls were wearing blue dresses, and boys were wearing silver. Details on their tuxedos. All the flowers were blue. We got married at Holy Rosary Catholic Church and then had the reception at the Pink Palace Museum. Our groom's cake was the Memphis Tiger, Leaping Tiger logo. Everyone was walking around with blue teeth all night because of the blue and the icing. We played the Tiger Fight song at our wedding. We did like some of the Frosh Camp dances at our wedding. I was a Frosh Camp counselor. I was an orientation guide. I was student government president. We did all the things, and all of those people showed back up for our wedding. And this was before like people is before like social media was really a thing, before people were really, incredibly connected like we are now. And so it was really incredible to see these people from all of these chapters in our University of Memphis lives. Danny's grandmother, who had season tickets and would always ride the bus down to the pyramid to watch the Tigers play, like, she was there. And my little sis in the sorority was my maid of honor. And, it just to see all of those generations of Tigers come together and celebrate, not just us, but celebrate the University of Memphis. It was like a University of Memphis reunion in so many ways. So we kind of trudged through the Knoxville years and wore as little orange as possible and had the opportunity. We always knew that, Memphis was always home. And it was a place that meant so much to us. And we always knew that we would have another chapter here. We just didn't know when. And so we took what I like to call like an exploratory test trip. You find that a lot of our life is based around Memphis sports. And so was it the Ole Miss game, Danny? The Memphis Ole Miss game, the
I
football
think
game?
so. That was when we stayed in the,
Yeah, the little house.
yeah.
Yeah, so we took a trip. We had Nola was 5 months old.
Yeah,
So
barely. Yeah, if
a
that.
3-year old and a 5-month old. And we were like, we know what Memphis is like as college students. We know what Memphis is like as adults. What is Memphis like as a parent? Right. That is something we had never experienced. And so we brought the kids all the way across the state, which that drive from Memphis to Knoxville is a long one. It's even longer when you're driving with a 5-month-old and a 3-year-old. And we stayed in Midtown in a little Airbnb and we're kind of tourists. We took the kids to the zoo and we ate at Elwood's Shack and we had ribs at the Rendezvous and then we took them to their first Memphis football game and we're pushing a double bob stroller through Tiger Lane and ended up at the tailgate spot, which is now our tailgate spot. We had this wonderful experience, realized that we love Memphis just as much as we had ever loved it, if not more, and that we really wanted our kids to be raised here. We wanted our family to be here. And not long after that, there was an opportunity for me to come back to the University of Memphis. And so took a job as the Associate Dean of Students at that time in the Division of Student Affairs. And that January, we made that drive back across the state and moved back here. We drove in a snowstorm, which is...
Yeah. Not as bad as this recent one. It doesn't
not
seem
as bad, but not great.
Yeah.
So drove in a snowstorm all the way here. And within 30 minutes of us pulling into the driveway of it's actually a family friend, also a Tiger, he let us stay in his father's house for a few months till we figured out what we were going to actually do. Maybe were there 30 minutes and Danny's aunts, both Memphis Tigers, showed up with Gibson's Donuts and Gus's Fried Chicken and all of the Memphis essentials, Tiny Bomb.
Yeah.
Beer from Wiseacre and we knew we were home. And at this point, we are both incredibly active, obviously, at the U of M. I've had the opportunity to open multiple schools here. We've had the opportunity for our children to attend those schools. Danny coaches our son and a lot of other people's sons on the JV and sixth grade basketball teams, which his law firm sponsors for the schools. I coach our daughter's fourth and fifth grade basketball team and just it's been a real joy to be able to raise our kids in the place that really has meant so much to us, not just because it brought us together, but I think it helped us to become the best versions of ourselves that we could be. I think we'll both forever be grateful to the UM event for that. We're season ticket holders and big supporters of all of the athletic programs at the U of M. And just, I think we would both say that to be Memphis Tigers was an easy decision, right, for both of us when we didn't even know each other. I mean, it was a great decision, but often Danny will say that the decision to move back to Memphis and really, commit to be here for the long haul, that's one of the best decisions we've ever made.
I think the closest I could get, I'm not even sure if this is going to count as one sentence or not, but for me, it is like a generational home. It was a home for my grandparents. They were the first ones that took me to like a Memphis Tigers game when I was, gosh, younger than my son right now. So like 10 years old probably. And we rode the bus from the Poplar Highland bus stop all the way down to the pyramid. And the first time I was in the pyramid, I was like blown away because I was from Chattanooga. We had a basketball arena there for the UTC, which is the college that's in Chattanooga, but it's maybe a fourth of the size of the pyramid, I think. And so that was great. I fell in love right away. My parents were from met at the University of Memphis. Sally and I met at the University of Memphis, and now our kids go to school there. And so it's like 4 generations of Parishes / Swobodas, which is my mother's maiden name and my grandparents' name. And so to me, I think that the generational sort of belonging and tie-ins to our life is the closest that I could sum it up to one sentence, which is now it's a lot more than that.
All very good sentences, though. And I think I have actually told you this before in our previous encounter, but every good thing that has ever happened to me has happened to me because of the University of Memphis. And that's my sentence. Every good thing that has happened to me has happened to me because of the University of Memphis. And that is not like hyperbole. That is not an exaggeration. Like, I think that in many ways I was totally adrift until I came to Memphis. And I don't think I ever felt what home was until I was a student here. And I don't feel like I ever really belonged somewhere until I belonged here. And I think every great thing that's ever happened to me, my amazing marriage and the family that I was able to inherit and all of those generations of Tigers, my career, our children, my purpose, it all stems from here. And I just think that I feel so fortunate. And I thank, 17-year-old Sally for making that choice, because who knows what life would look like had it not been for the U of M frames. Thank you for the opportunity. And we're not like a ushy gushy love story, but we're a real one. 22 years. Yeah.
Yep.